My name is Emil. I'm a digital strategist. I answer marketing questions. This is episode 35, and this question is one of the biggest questions a marketer or digital strategist will ever get from clients that range the wide spectrum, existing massive spend clients to brand new startups. And this came from Dan, a viewer, shot me an email, and it's a very succinct question. How much do you typically spend before you see results? I love this question because once you break down the components of spend to results, it starts to get everybody moving in the same direction. So in this video, I'm going to cover starting an online business in 2021 and beyond because it is so misunderstood to this day. Number two, how I manage spend in the early stages for any organization, and the secret to success that you've seen online businesses have, that I've seen from the back end online businesses have, and it's not a bullshit answer. It's the genuine truth of success. I'm just going to break it down in its simplest form. But first, every Sunday, I send out one email that recaps all the marketing questions I answered that week. If you want to stay up to date on best practices, strategies, and become an overall stronger marketer, I think you would really enjoy this recap. It would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to the newsletter and my YouTube channel. Now, back to the answer. When somebody asks me how much money do I need to spend or how long before I see a result, I counter with this question because it reframes it into a way we can all have a discussion. When somebody's asking me how much money they need to spend, there's a lot of knowledge gap. This is why they hired me. This is why they hire you as a professional if you are a paid advertising specialist. They want to know what they don't know. That's what the question really says. It says, I have no idea what to expect. Can you please explain this to me? This is my question in return. How long before you get somebody to 7% body fat? In the moment I ask this question, they have all the tools to start responding and breaking down the problem. They'll say things like, well, what percentage of body fat do they currently have? Okay, we got a starter point. What is their daily routine? What is their habit? What resources do they have available to them? Are they dedicated to getting to 7% body fat, or is this going to be a big push for somebody who doesn't even want it? Is there any health risks for them to get there? What's the end result of being at 7% body fat? And then, of course, how long do they have to get there, no matter where their starting point is? We just unloaded so many components of this, and we agreed on it. There was no knowledge gaps here, right? So now let's break down how much money should you spend before you see results, because it's that loaded and it has that many nuances. Startup the validation stage is one of the most annoying and gut busting stages there really is. This is why most businesses fail. It isn't because people aren't apt. It isn't because most people are incompetent. It's because this is just so hard. In our time right now in 2021, the classic comment that if you look at startup validation from Peter Thiel to Elon Musk, the comment that keeps saying is running a business is like chewing on glass and staring into the void, right? It's a cool, sexy thing to say, but really it's what it feels like. Anybody who's grown a business totally understands what that means, and anybody who hasn't grown a business, that sounds exciting until you get to that stage and you hate it. So the startup validation stage is difficult because you're combating so many things. Lack of resources, lack of understanding, lack of clients, lack of motivation that's external. It's always going to be internal. And when we're asking how much we spend, we've got to remember we spend in two ways. There's the resource capital we have, which is money, right? But money's just a tool. The second component is our time. How do we spend our time in deploying that money? And as a digital strategist, as you're seeing, there's layers to this. It's not me saying we need to go buy, we need to go do this. There's so many components that are involved here, and only one of them is money, and the other is what we do with our time in pursuit of scaling. Everyone has a different threshold of what they can spend, whether it's money or time. And understanding those thresholds, understanding those limitations is critical in understanding what you need to deploy to get the result you're after. So that question, result, in the early stages means different things to us than it does when someone's asking it. For example, when I hear the word result, I didn't hear the word how much money should we spend before we're profitable. That's a direct question. And I'm sure that's what it meant. But maybe you meant how I'm thinking about it is how much money before we validate that the product is good, that the audience is good, that the infrastructure we built around it is substantial, that the automation or processes we've developed are great, that the pricing is good. So we may lose money but get sales, or we may not get sales but get people close to a sale. So the result is what we're after. And the reason we have different thresholds is we have different expectations. There's business versus opportunity. When you're building a business, your expectation is long term, and you're playing what Simon Sinek or whatever his name is, and I kind of dislike him just because he lives in an idealized world that's just not realistic unless you're dealing with high performing self starters. You try running a Burger King with Simon Sinek's mentality. But there's business versus opportunity. If you're building a long-term business, then you're essentially playing that infinite game. You have the you're dedicating yourself to an X amount of time, an indefinite amount of time to develop something, see it through, and have it benefit you financially, and of course, elevating what you do on a day-to-day basis, give you some purpose, which is important. The other is opportunity. And I use the opportunity model as what most people do when they jump online. They see, oh, nobody's doing this or nobody's doing that. Do you want to be doing it, or do you just think that it's going to be easy money? Because there's no freaking such thing as easy money. You can scale pretty fast in some areas. You can make a decent amount of money, but you're not building businesses. You're capitalizing on opportunities. You know how many seven-figure months people had for a year during fidget spinner days? But do you want to invest in a fidget spinner business? So that was an opportunity that people who had the tools, the resources, and the know-how on how to opportunity jump did it. I don't deal with opportunity jumpers. I don't like it. It's stressful. It's boring, and you're never investing into any sort of infrastructure or long-term goals. It's always just how much money can I make really fast. I loathe that with everything in me. It's just disgusting to me. So I focus on people who build businesses and with people who build businesses. I have a client right now. I love this guy and his team dearly. He's doing really, really, really cool things. I really like the product he's putting out. And he started off with a question: we got to validate if there's a there. And I like that term. Is there a there? Yeah, there often is. The truth is, most of the time, yes, there is a there. 100% your business will work. It will work regardless of naysayers. It'll work regardless of how many people tell you it's a bad idea. It just, do you want to make it work? 99% of the work today is building trust and value. And I say today because for some reason think that because we're going online, we don't have to put in the work to be trustworthy and develop an ecosystem of value. This is where the biggest conflict of how much money or time somebody needs to spend comes to. You can't shortchange that system. You can if you have a commodity base and you're lower cost and you have a validated sales system. You can do that. If you're opportunity hopping, you can hack some systems to get it there. But that's where all the ebb and flow, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Might as well just invest in the stock market. You'll have a much better chance of return. But if you take that 99% seriously and say, I'm going to build trust and value, well, you're just replicating things that have worked from day one. And I want to point out, when I have a conversation with a client of how much they should invest, how much time, when should they see a result, this is Amazon stock. And I'm sure if you saw the other video I have where I talk about onboarding a client, sometimes I bring this up and say, here's Amazon stock. All of this work here, all of this work was biting glass and staring off into the abyss. And then here is the work being paid off. This is after they developed trust and value. I mean, everyone now wants to own stock there, but how many people were buying books from Jeff Bezos early on? And how many people were using his buggy system early on? And how many people didn't believe that they should have AWS going, and what a big component that is? This is the company that believed in itself and wasn't there for the short haul, and look at it now, right? And it's, again, let's look at Google. There was a time in your life you didn't have a Gmail. There was a time in your life you didn't use Google Shopping and you used Yahoo. But Google invested in trust and value. You trust Google search results. We do as a society, as a global society. Um, Apple. There was a time you didn't have an iPhone or an iMac or MacBook Pro. There was a time you used Windows units, and Bill Gates was the guy you were looking at, and suddenly a massive change happened where quality got good. You trust the value. You're going to spend $300 to $400 more on a phone, or $1,000 more on a computer, or $2,000 more on a computer, or $600 on wheels because you trust this company and you really respect its value. And then there's Tesla, and I know this is a question about marketing. How much money should we spend? But these companies, they spent billions of dollars and lost billions of dollars developing trust and value with you. Building a business, no matter what it is, has to go through those same steps. And here are the 3 pillars of progress that I always recommend for my clients, and how I walk them through it and how I determine spend. So the 3 pillars of progress starts with the offer. The offer is going to address how big of audience are we going for? Is this a super niche product, or do we have 10% or more of the population? By having a bigger group of people we can appeal to, we can validate that our offer makes a lot of sense early on. The cost. Are we priced reasonably? Are we more expensive, right in line, or lower cost than all of the available metrics we find for reasonable competition? And that competition, how aggressive are they? How many players are in the field? And if our offer was side by side with them all, how out of place does it look? And of course, the sales cycle. Is this a long-term sales cycle or a short-term sales cycle? So here's some KPIs that I look at when I'm validating offer. Number 1 is I'll test things like, let's say the average offer is $25 or $50 for this product that people buy. I'm going to put mine in at 25 to 30% less than the average. So that means there should be some things like content and some best practices that may not need to be in place if people jump on it and immediately buy, right? And now I am losing money at that percentage, but I'm validating that the audience exists for this, and I'm also validating that I can get in front of them pretty cheaply and that they'll buy. If you have a product that is 25 to 30% lower cost than your nearest competitor and you can't sell it, now we got to talk about why that is. Is the population very scared by such a low price? Is the niche oversaturated and you really do need to do a lot of legwork to build the value, even if you're going to undercut them? And it's a good thing to know early on. So the KPI early on is, can I sell it at a massive discount fast? And if the answer is yes, we validated the offer and we just need to add value to bring the cost up. If the answer is no, we have an infrastructure issue, a trust issue, and the market is not cost driven. They're more, we now know that they really are focused on getting high quality products. So we've just validated the offer one way or the other. Next is messaging. Once we validate the offer, and we'll decide what that KPI is when we, depending on the product or service, now we got to understand the messaging. If this is a social play, what is our tone? What kind of interaction rate should we expect? If this is a commodity play where there's just a lot of competitors, what does our shopping environment look like? And what do we need to bring out to folks for them to understand the offer? And then is this an outbound or inbound play? This is the KPIs I'm looking for with messaging. And they're going to be closely tied into our next pillar, which is content. But with messaging, do people interact with the things that I'm putting out? So if I put out an image or a video on a social network, do I get interaction from that audience that I've already validated the offer to? Are they positively interacting with me or negatively interacting with me? If it's a shopping ad, are people clicking and searching for the right thing through search term report, or are they looking at something adjacent? And then outbound and inbound are going to be the big ones. Outbound marketing means I've got to get my product in front of you through YouTube ads, Facebook, Instagram, Reels, TikTok. Inbound means you're looking for me, best plumber in X area. I don't have to go do a lot of outbound marketing. There's plenty of people searching for plumbers in this area. I just got to do really, really well on search. And I'm looking for one KPI, see CTR, click-through rate. No matter what it is, I want to get a click-through rate that's above average, and that'll let me know if messaging is on point. Here's my above average. Facebook is at 0.8% on average, and Google, they'll say it's a 2 to 3% on average for intent. So if it's outbound, I want a 1.5 to 3%. That means people are engaging with me more often than my nearest competitor. If it's so that's social. If it's search and inbound, I want to be at the 6 to 8% click through rate, and I want this very early on. So I'm going to focus heavily on what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, and who I'm saying it to. And once I validate messaging, I'm going to talk about content, because content is going to be that second component. How high quality of content do you have? Even if you're a plumber, that content could be something as simple as the person who answers the phone saying the same thing over, and being very professional, to a message machine that sounds like you got a hold of a business. Great example would be you call a plumber and it says, it's Jimmy, leave a message. Or, hey, this is James's Plumbing Company. We are with a client right now. We will call you back within 15 minutes. Please leave your name, number, and the issue you're trying to solve. Which one now? That's content. People don't look at it, but that's content. That same problem lays over and over and over again with content is everything that we do is about a user experience, and the things that we're putting out there will give them a feel for who we are as a company. And then how fast can we change things? So if we're doing video, if we're doing podcasts, if we're doing great search ads and amazing landing pages, and how quickly can we get this work start to finish done and agreed upon? And then what is the intent? If it's always ask, 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 well, unless you're a service business that's in high demand, you need to give, give, give. And I don't want to sound like Gary Vaynerchuk, but there's a reason why he's done so well. He gives, gives, gives. And that giving component gives people come back, trust, and add value. And from there, they can move on and decide if they're going to do business with you. And the KPI that I look at content is actually twofold. It's going to be a component of CTR, but it's also going to be a component of CPM. If you have really high click-through rates and amazing content in a really expensive environment, your CPM should be lower. So look at your average CPM for the audience you're going after, and your goal is to have it lower than the average there. So let's say you're going after people who have CRMs. The average CPM for CRMs that I'm seeing is between $150 and $300, in that range. So if I can do content that has high click-through rate, targeting people who are into CRMs, and I'm at $90 to $75 for my CPM, now validated. The offer at low cost, messaging at high click-through rate, and then content at a high click-through rate, lower CPM. Now we have the trifecta. Doesn't mean we're making money, but we validated along the way. And how much time or money you need to spend to get there depends on the KPI you're trying to hit and the medium you're on. I hate that that's such a broad answer, but it is. And here's a way to refine that broad answer a little more. Early on, just define the metrics that matter along those paths on messaging, on offer, or on content. I like to do very small steps. If we see an audience that's on the page but they're not adding to cart, let's focus on what we need to get them to add to cart. If we see a audience that is just browsing through the ads but not clicking on them, let's focus on what we need to click on the ad. And then depending on your resources, this is how I define allocating budget to result. If we have small resources, then we're looking at really big steps really, really fast. And it's likely that we're going to fall along the way. If you have decent amount of time and a decent capital reserve, then we could focus on small things along the way. And it might be months or longer before you hit profitability. And the reason this isn't so much that your product isn't good or your offer isn't great, but we have so much groundwork to do after you have created a product, built a website, and defined the audience. We've got to validate the interest for the product messaging. So do people get it? If not, we need to refine how we're messaging it. Just because we understand it doesn't mean the audience does. Do people respond? Just because they're not responding doesn't mean that they're not interested. It just means we didn't position it in a way that makes them interested. And are there pre-purchase signals? Are they browsing on the page? Are they interacting heavily with you? Do they really get the product? They're just not buying right now. That's a great sign. It's not a great sign for the pocketbook, but it's a great sign. You have to be ready to pivot. Did this marketing channel work better? Did this audience work better? Do we want to change the product that we're selling or the service we're providing, augment it in some way to be more meaningful to the audience? We've got to take the input from the responses we're getting and use that data to make decisions. Because we have a really strong low weight impact to get online business going, we sometimes step over some best business practices. If we look at the world before the internet, if you wanted to start a business somewhere, there was always an axiom that to this day everyone knows: location, location, location. Everyone knows this globally. The better position your business was to high foot traffic area, people with money, the better you were going to do. Location, location, location. People would pay prime dollar for location. Location today for us is independent for online. It doesn't matter where we are. We can service a business anywhere as long as we're not a in-person service business, right? But there is the opposite of location, 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 or but maybe let me run that a parallel to location, location, location. Today, businesses need content, 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 because we're building trust, we're building value, and we're letting people know why we are and how we can fit into their life. This takes time, and just location, location, location. It could take months or years to build up on a strip of land. Content takes just as much time and just as much energy. You may not need $10,000 square foot building, but you definitely need to put those resources elsewhere, which is going to be content. And if you look at all the things that you purchase, all the things that you trust, and all the things that you dedicate your time to, I bet they have invested heavily in content. And before you give up on your product, before you give up on your service, do me this one favor. It never fails, and people get totally different results when they reallocate themselves this way. Do 6 months of content. Do nothing but 6 months of dedicated content on a daily basis of some sort. Work towards providing huge content for your audience, and you will be shocked at how much that returns to your business. I hope this helped. I know it's one of the longest answers yet. It was such a loaded question, but I wanted to answer it the way I see it and the way most strategists should be looking at it. If this added any value, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe below. And as always, good luck and happy marketing.